pleased to introduce our next panel of speakers. The panel is called We Grow Together, Urban Farms and Community Agriculture. This is really exciting. Okay, so it's going to be the same format as last time. So for the speakers, if you just joined, we'll have each of you have 15 minutes. And then at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes for question answer discussion. And Dave will give each of you, the speakers, a 2-minute warning when your time comes. So I'll introduce the first speaker. Erin Beagle is the Executive Director of Roots Community Food Centre in Thunder Bay, Ontario. She leads a team of 15 passionate folks who, together, use food as a tool to work with the community through advocacy, education, and outreach. Erin has been recognized for her work most recently as the Business Person of the Year and the Innovation Person of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce and the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Centre. Welcome, Erin. Our next speaker is Ayla Fenton. Ayla is a first-generation farmer and community organizer and a member of the NFU. Since 2013, she has been working on local organic farms in Eastern Ontario, learning regenerative production methods for vegetables, livestock, cereal, grains, and dairy. Ayla served as a board member of the National Farmers Union from 2015 to 2019. Ayla also represents the NFU in the global peasant movement, La Via Campesina. Since 2021, she has been focusing her time and energy back in her home community of Kingston, Ontario, working as the food systems manager at Loving Spoonful. Welcome, Ayla. Our next speaker, Ekow Stone, has been working as a farmer and educator for the past 4 years, focusing on youth engagement, culturally appropriate crops, cut wildflower production, and seed saving. He's a coordinator of Food Share's School Grown program, where he co-manages a 3-acre urban farm site, growing vegetables and teaching and learning about organic farming and food justice. Ekow is part owner of It's Giving Farm, a new small-scale vegetable farm located in Stouffville, Ontario. And you can read more about all of these speakers in the convention package. Each panelist has 15 minutes, as I said, and then we'll have time for discussion. So we'll go ahead and start with our first speaker, Erin, when you're ready.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me here. And I hope it's a lovely day where you are. Thunder Bay is just out of a snowstorm from early this week, and everybody's dug out, and we have a bunch of folks eating in our dining room right now, which is brand new, which I'll tell you all about. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I want to share and talk about how we approach employment here, and employment particularly as it pertains to our urban farms, which we've been doing for a number of years now. So really simply, Roots is a not-for-profit, a charitable organization that started in Thunder Bay way back in 2007 through a project at Lakehead University. And it was a bit of an obscure grant from the provincial government at that time. It was called a Y-Stop grant, a Youth Sciences and Technology Outreach Program. It was a 3-year, I think it was through the Ministry of Research and Innovation. And randomly, it was called Roots to Harvest. This is what the profs who wrote the grant called it. And I was hired to run that project and try to get all the milestones of it complete over that time. And I don't usually talk about the origin story of it anymore, only that it started out like as a time-limited project that has become, you know, a large organization that serves the needs of the community in a much bigger way now. And it has some pretty humble beginnings. And I say that has maintained like the tone throughout. So, you know, in Thunder Bay, we have, if we're lucky, 90 frost-free days of growing, and trying to do, you know, all the engagement around food within that time led us to think about how do we do this with youth in the peak of our growing season, which is when they're not in schools anymore, so July and August, and looking at models from around that we could try to find. And I came across one day the Food Project in Boston, And what I loved about the food project in Boston, if you haven't heard of it, it's similar to what we're talking about today. It's youth employed through urban agriculture in support of employment in urban places. And I think they also have some more rural spaces now too. At the time, I think that food project had been going on for 10 years and they were a real model for how we did it. And my background is in youth engagement and community engagement. So it was a good fit to how we did it. And we set about trying to find a piece of vacant property that we could do it on. We got a bunch of no's and went back to one of those no's later on, and he said yes, and started this like really shaggy, crunchy farm downtown Thunder Bay, and with no knowledge. My degree is in marine biology. I have an education degree. So I don't come at this from a farming background. I come at it from a community background. But what stood out in those days was how food connected to community. Like this was what lasted past all those years that we did in the grant with those 3 years. Food connecting community, food engaging youth in positive ways, and like the long-term impacts of that. So from all that is what Roots was really born of. So when that grant ended, we did a couple of shoestring years. I had a couple babies, and then we incorporated. We had like $800 in a little like pencil case that we had squirreled away from selling vegetables, and we thought we can either start like go for it, like let's try to like see what happens, or we'll just donate to another organization. And so myself and a woman named Jody Mitchell, who was a student at LU at the time, just decided to go for it. And we I say that we decided, like we naively decided to try to see what this did. And we registered as a not-for-profit. I think we paid a lawyer at one point. We got the first bill and we're like, oh my gosh, no, we'll just do it ourselves. So we just did it ourselves. And then we got our first Trillium grant, and then that has led on. So now, 15 years later from when Root started, I guess, like 2007 to now, I don't think I did the math right there, but you can do the math. We now have 15 employees. We have a $2 million a year budget. And last year we became a community food center, part of Community Food Centers Canada, which is a really great step for Thunder Bay itself. And we do a lot of different kind of work now. So that has stayed. Our tagline used to be Roots to Harvest. This is what we used to be called. Punks growing food. That was like how we communicated ourselves to people. And because that's who we worked with was high school kids, who we like lovingly call punks, and who like related to that word. And we don't use that as much anymore. We sort of talk about there being room at the table for everybody, because not everybody we work with, like there's a room full of like they were probably some good punks in that age, but I have a room full of people eating beside me right now who are all 60 plus and punks at heart, I'm sure though. So now we work in lots of areas. Dignified food access, which was probably our newest area and really born out of COVID, and really digging into what is dignified food access, which we could go on for days about, but we will not today. A lot of work around food skills. We have a large community kitchen here, commercial kitchen, that we do programming with 18 to 30-year-olds who get high school credit, who get safe food handling, who work with chefs, local chefs in restaurants, and all these different things, and as well as refugee women in a similar kind of context. A lot of community engagement work in our spaces. We work a lot more with older adults right now, adults who are aging at home, and want more community engagement. Supportive employment, it's still a lot of our core work. System navigation around, and I'll talk about this actually in context of employment, around the justice system, around the healthcare system, around the education system, around the social services system, is like how do people navigate these systems, especially the people we work with, to be able to get the outcomes that they're meant for, but there's so many barriers to them actually seeing them. And then tons of knowledge sharing. So we have a large seed saving community. We do a lot of beekeeping and work around orchards and perennials, and just bringing in people from all different aspects of the community. And we have this really beautiful space. I wish I could show you what it is, but there's this beautiful space that just brings people in and together and gets used in a lot of ways that we didn't intend it to be used in, actually, which is quite lovely, of being open to sort of what happens when you have a space that people want to be in. So our employment work here, and I'll just say right from the beginning, like we are not trying to raise or train farmers, and And I feel like I want to say that up front so that you can't, I don't know, like tell me that's not how you do it. Like, I feel like in a room of farmers and, you know, people who are really good at this, I like that we would never pretend that that's what the work is. Like really the work for us, our approach to employment is working with people where they're at, and the inherent skills and experiences that come from working on farm with food in the land outside through all the challenges and weather, like it's just so applicable to all different parts of people's lives. And yeah, so I you know, the work is not so much about the farming or even the food, but it is truly about people. Our age group that we work on is with 15 to 30-year-olds. This is more defined because of the government. So the government has a statistics category they call youth, 15 to 30-year-olds, and specifically they call them NEET youth, N-E-E-T, which stands for not in employment, education, or training. And so this is like this category that they track about what percentage of youth are NEET youth. And then they build funding programs around this. And that's not initially how we started. Like we were really 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Later on, and I'll talk about that a bit, we've worked like with older, like post 18. We didn't used to cap it at 30 until sort of the funding helped us cap it. And I'll talk about where our funding comes from. But in our opinion, the reason that somebody is a NEET youth is very different if they're 15 and then if they're 25. So we don't treat the category of humans the same. We don't do programming the same. It's totally different. And we push against a lot of the ways in which the government would like us to craft our programs. Like we don't fit their boxes, and it was a real challenge to get funding from them. We just do not check their boxes, but they are continuing to fund us still, and we'll see how long that lasts. Some of our approaches to employment here at Roots is that the work is meaningful, valued, and productive, that it's not a make work project, that there is always a reason why they're there, a reason to show up. It is true employment. People are paid a living wage here. The living wage in Thunder Bay last year was $16.30 an hour. It has gone up this year to $19.70 an hour. So that is the wage that we budgeted to this year, which will be a challenge, but worth it. We work really hard at balancing challenges with achievement. So, and again, this work is perfect for that, that you can come up against something again and again, that it's hard, that it's difficult. And then there's this like, all of a sudden, like there's this outcome that is just like so worth it. And there's a sense of pride and yeah, of knowing that there was something gained from that is really helpful. The idea that every day is a fresh start. The people that we work with come from a lot of different backgrounds and face a lot of challenges day to day, and have come from some pretty incredible starts. And so, you know, stuff happens day to day. And so it's really important that the staff have this in their head every day, that every day is a fresh start. Something happened yesterday, at the end of the day, or whatever, that like, let's try again tomorrow. And so there's lots of chances to succeed here. And lots of different pathways that success looks like. And I think that this is also where a lot of the funding is challenged as well, because they want to tell you what success is. They want to tell you success is that people are enrolled in school or have a job or are now in a training program, or they want to tell you that success is how many pounds of potatoes you grew, which we refuse to do or like to count. And for us, success is maybe for this one person that they're more comfortable making eye contact now when they talk to people at the market stand, or they've made a connection at work that has extended beyond work, that is like actually part of their life now. Like this is success. So like what is success is different for every single person and almost at different times of their lives. So we're constantly trying to find these different ways of measuring success that exemplifies that. Meeting people where they're at is really important for us. So, you know, people, again, some of them are coming, lots of the folks we work with have not finished high school for a ton of different reasons, you know, have been in and out of different systems of care or the justice system. And there's lots of different reasons why they've landed with Roots. but we want to see where they're at. And again, it's not about the food for us. So we do 2 urban farm employment programs, like I mentioned, because we split up that NEAT youth category. So our urban youth farm program is where I'll talk about first. This was our initial one. This is how Roots started in the beginning. It's 7 weeks in July and August. So based kind of around their school year. For the most part, the kids in this program go to school. I would say they like school is not the place they feel most comfortable. Most of them are pretty disengaged from school, but school is kind of like the entry point for us into this program. And this is one of those points, again, where the government wants them to not be in school to be in this program, and we disagree. So 16 to 18-year-olds, we put 12 folks in this program from 3 different high schools and a couple of different sort of extensions of high school programs, like alt-ed programs that come in. We have 3 staff that run this program. We have a grower that works between both sites, both of our urban farm sites, and a community navigator. And the community navigator, I'll talk about in a little bit, like sort of what she takes on. All of the work that we do is concurrent with the training, and the work are concurrent. So it's not like they have to like do all these things and now they can do the program, which you see it in a lot of employment things. It's for the folks we work with, they just wouldn't show up for that part. It's like, I don't want to do my resume and do this stuff and do my WSI or like my WMIS, and they just want to come and work. Like, and so we do all this stuff concurrently. Like I said, we pay a living wage. The funding for this one comes from ESCC, which is Employment Skills Development Canada, and the Public School Board through Focus on Youth money through the Ministry of Education. And that's specifically through the Public Board. And it's about a half an acre at that one. Our show program is for 20 weeks. So after the May long weekend, we could absolutely still have snow here, sometimes not on the ground, but it could snow still in May long here. I think our last frost date is like June 6th, I think is like what we're like in the zone for. It's rare that we get that, but
warning, Erin.
Thank you. So 20 weeks, 18 to 30-year-olds, 10 people take this program, 2 staff, the grower and the community navigator are there, and then same thing, except for we also have some RBC money with that one, and it's a much bigger space. This is what they look like. This is hard to see, but the aerial program is where the show program works. So that's the school board office, and there's like another program office. So it was a big piece of vacant property. And then the one with the rows of food that you can see is where our UYFP program works. So that's about a half an acre right beside a community center. And then at each site we have bee yards as well, so small apiaries. And at the one with the rows, we also have a rabbitry. So we raise rabbits locally. And then our approach again is this thing about employing the whole person. So we would say that it's a spectrum. We want to work people towards a sustainable livelihood in these programs. We come in, I would say, about like a third of the way down that line. So it's not like we're pulling people who are like roughly housed off the street and saying, come and work. Like that's not their next step. Their next step is like so many other interventions need to happen before they come and work with us. So if you work with us at Roots, it's because some other place has connected you to us to be in that program. And it's not like a formal referral thing. It's not a sort of walk in and get employment. So sustainable livelihood is a big part of how we measure success and evaluation. And I can always happy to share more about the sustainable livelihoods model that we use. But it's based around this idea that we need different assets in our lives in order to build stability, in order to work towards a sustainable livelihood. And a lot of the folks in our community who are working with us do not have the absorption to take the shocks of life that allow them to continue on in successful ways. So something happens in their life and things spiral very quickly. And so this is where the idea of community supports comes in for us. So like I said, we have a community navigator. She helps do the facilitation around helping with housing, replacing ID, taxes, childcare, healthcare, transportation, connecting with counseling. And it's not that we do all those things, but we connect them to the services in the community that does that and walk beside them as that is the work that needs to happen. Yeah, and there's so much more about that, but it's a big part. No problem. I think that is the end. So that's how you can sort of find us. We're easy to get a hold of, and I'm happy to answer questions when it's time. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Erin. Our next speaker is Ayla. When you're ready, Ayla.
Sure. Hi, everyone.
I'm going to share my presentation here. 1 second. Shoot. Can you guys see that?
We can see it. Yeah.
How do I?
And then at the bottom of the screen near that sort of zoom function to the left,
yeah.
right there.
There we go. Is that good?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. My name's Ayla. I am the food systems manager at Loving Spoonful, but probably a lot of you know me as an NFU member. I've been around here for a little while. As Taryn said in my introduction, I spent about 10 years working on farms in the Kingston area and being pretty heavily involved with the NFU. And I'm still involved with the NFU, but not on the board anymore. So I have a little bit more time for local projects, which has been really fun. So since 2021, I've been working full-time for Loving Spoonful, developing urban agriculture projects and managing all of the urban agriculture programs and local food access programs. So I'll start with telling you a little bit about Loving Spoonful and our various programs and how we're working to contribute to building food sovereignty in the Kingston area. And then I'll go into talking specifically about the new community training farm project. So Loving Spoonful was founded in 2008. Much like Roots to Harvest, very humble beginnings. It was a very much grassroots project when it started, focused on food waste recovery and redistribution. So it was like volunteers driving around town, picking up food, surplus food from restaurants and grocery stores and places like that, and from local farmers, and redistributing it to shelters and meal programs and anywhere in the community that it was needed. It was Loving Spoonful was formally incorporated as a charity in 2011 with 2 staff. The first ED of the organization actually, and through most of its history, was Mara Shaw, who is now the executive director of the National Farmers Union nationally. So just wanted to flag that to make sure that you all know that that lady does some pretty cool work. And she grew the organization from 2 staff in a closet office under the stairs at a community center to a very vibrant organization with like 15 staff and a whole bunch of different programs. We, in recent years, have begun to shift from really a focus on food charity towards a focus on food sovereignty. So like I said, those original programs were really focused on just collecting food and distributing it for free to alleviate food insecurity in the community, which is obviously very important work. But we've expanded that and are now working with the principles of food sovereignty actually embedded into our strategic plan since 2021. And also since 2021, we're working exclusively with local food. So we are still doing some food redistribution, rescue type stuff, but only with local farms, collecting surplus from local farms. And we have a whole bunch of other educational programs that I'll talk about now. And I also wanted to mention that we are a good food organization, which is like a membership structure through Community Food Centers Canada, but we did make an explicit decision back in those early days not to become an actual community food center. And the reason for that is that Kingston is a large enough city that we felt that like a single community food center that would be like a physical site where all of our programs are delivered from would not adequately meet the needs of our community. So we decided to go with more of a distributed model. So we offer programming at different community centers, different community gardens, like all over town, to be able to reach the maximum number of people. So a quick overview of all of our programs. So one big program area is our agriculture and garden programs, with an overall goal to get more food grown locally in the Kingston area, and specifically in the urban area. So our agricultural programs include our gleaning program. This is a long-standing program that's been going at Loving Spoonful for many, many years, where we collect surplus crops from local farmers to redistribute in the community. We do that by picking up at the farmers markets at the end of the day. We'll send volunteers out to your farm in the middle of the week if you want to donate that way. And we'll also organize gleaning trips where we actually take volunteers to your farm and harvest any unharvested crops. So, if you have damaged crops or crops that you just don't have the labor to pick or anything like that. We are also newly into the game of managing farmers markets. We've just recently taken over operation of Kingston Public Market, which is actually the oldest farmers market in Canada, or the longest running farmers market in Canada, that has been managed or not really managed by the city for many, many years. It's been a little bit neglected. So we're moving in there this year to take over and try to transition it to being more of a true farmers market and less of a resellers market. And then finally, the community training farm that just started last year as a pilot project, and I'll talk way more about that in a few minutes. Our garden programs include Grow a Row. So Grow a Row is our gardener donation program. So any gardener, like home gardener or community gardener, grows an extra row for Loving Spoonful. And the idea is we encourage people to grow extra, or they just donate whatever surplus they have from their gardens and we redistribute it in the community where it's needed. We also facilitate the Kingston Community Gardens Network. When we took over that in 2013, I believe it was. There was 7 community gardens in Kingston, and now there are 35. So the growth there has been like exponential, and especially since the beginning of the pandemic, the number of new community gardens that have gotten started is staggering. So I hope that momentum keeps up. And then our community harvest gardens is a relatively new program. It was run for a long time as a grassroots program in Kingston, where there was an urban agriculture site in the city's north end that grew food with volunteers and kind of grassroots community group, and then sold that food at the community harvest market, which was an affordable access farmers market with like really nominal prices. Loving Spoonful took over that program just last year. And so we've expanded it now to have 3 other sites, urban agriculture, community harvest gardens in other parts of the city that are all growing food. And that in the bottom corner is a picture of Marie, who some of you might know. She's also a longtime farm worker in the Kingston area and NFU member. And she's our community harvest farmer. So she works with neighborhood community members to like provide educational opportunities. We do a lot of like drop-in sessions where people can come and help in the gardens as a means of learning. And then all of that food goes into the markets. So the other side of our programs is improving access to local food. So our local food access programs include what we call local food stands. These are basically just like shelving units that we have in various partner agencies throughout Kingston. So the idea with those was to create completely barrier-free access to food for people who need it. So there's no like waiting in line and like, you know, like showing us your income or anything like that to prove that you need the free food. You can just go and help yourself to whatever you want. And they're located within places that people who might be experiencing food insecurity are already going to be going. So places like Ontario Works or addictions and mental health services, like various social service providers. So that's where a lot of the food produced at the farm and at the community harvest gardens and that we collect from donations gets distributed to those stands. We also run the community harvest markets that I just mentioned. We've adapted them. So we've added a second market now, and we've adapted them to be on sliding scale pricing. It's important to us that in order to provide dignified access, the markets are open to anybody and you can choose what you pay. Those markets have been able to have kind of begun to contribute to building some really interesting community connections. Finally, a new project that also just got started last year with the support of the City of Kingston is the Community Food Redistribution Warehouse. So the city basically got some federal COVID money to put into renovating this old warehouse that's now used by multiple food agencies, including Loving Spoonful, to collect and redistribute food. So a number of other organizations use it for like collecting surplus food from like Costco, like they'll get like pallets of granola bars and stuff like that, and redistribute to various agencies. It's really changed the game for us because it's allowed us to have access to large scale cold storage, which has really significantly increased the amount of produce that we can store and distribute over the winter, obviously, and the donations that we can accept from farmers. Our community kitchens program is all about bringing people together to cook and to share food. So building food skills, but more importantly, building community and reducing social isolation. We have an open kitchens program that's like a drop-in program. Our new outdoor kitchen that started at the beginning of the pandemic, that's like a trailer with a whole kitchen that rolls out of it basically. So we can roll up to a community garden or something like that to run a workshop outdoors. And then we do a lot of custom programs with various partner agencies The example there is Wusinada, which was a partnership with Tipi Moza, which is an Indigenous transitional housing provider in Kingston. And we did a whole series, a year-long series of weekly workshops with their tenants to work with traditional foods. And then finally, the school programs. So the GROW project provides curriculum-linked food systems education in elementary schools. We, again, during the pandemic, a lot of pivoting happening at that time, but we took the whole program online and are developing basically a package that can be available to school boards across Ontario. So if any of you know teachers who might be interested in incorporating this type of content into their classrooms, it's available now, and I've just put some contact information there. So the community training farm, we got started. We were basically approached by the city in early 2020 when we first started our urban agriculture program. And it's a funny story because, again, Mara Shaw and I believe Diane Dowling, who's also a longtime NFU member, happened to be in a meeting with the city about something else. And we're talking about barriers for new farmers and how access to land is a real barrier for new farmers. And the city goes like, oh, well, we have access to lots of land. Maybe there's something we could do to help out with that. And so they ended up approaching Loving Spoonful about the idea of starting a community farm. And specifically, they actually were interested in starting an incubator farm. We collectively applied for the skills development grant in the fall of 2020, was unsuccessful. So we applied again in fall 2021, and we got approved last May. So it was like a little bit crazy timing because we were supposed to find out in January. We didn't find out until May. And they were like, okay, go, like run a 6-month farmer training program now. And so we were just like in total panic mode because we didn't even have a farm yet. Like we hadn't even finalized the land access. So this is how we got going. We got access to 2 acres on the Collins Bay Institution, which is one of the prison farms right in the middle of Kingston. This is what it looked like when we got it about a week before the training program started. It was just like an empty field. So the training program ended up really being training people to work in agriculture by building a farm from scratch. It was a little wild and I'm kind of still in shock about how well it worked out. But going into this year, feeling much better because now we have an established farm and are able to start the training program in May. So the main part of this training program is on-farm training. The idea is that it's funded by the Skills Development Fund, which is through the Ministry of Labor and Skills and Training. I can't remember, I can never remember the name of the ministry because they've changed the name like 100 times, but it's provincial ministry. And the idea is that we're training people to be able to enter the workforce in the agricultural industry. So the focus, the target demographics are people who experience barriers to employment and specifically people who have historically experienced barriers to entry into the agricultural industry. Those groups are obviously pretty broad. It's everything from women and youth, newcomers to Canada, racialized people, people living with mental health and addictions issues, recently incarcerated people. So we did our recruitment by reaching out to social service agencies who serve those various demographics. We ended up with a group of about 30 participants that we divided into 3 groups of 10. Each group attended training 1 morning a week. So about 4 hours a week, they would come on the farm and actually learn hands-on skills, learning by doing, like planting, weeding, watering, everything on farm in like a very intensive market garden style. And
friendly 2 minutes, Ayla.
Okay, thanks. It was very on the fly, I should say, last year because it was so last minute. We were kind of developing the curriculum as we went along, but now we're in the process of sort of formalizing what we did last year so that we can deliver it better this year. Another important part of the program was farm tours. So throughout, so the program last year ran from July until December. July through October, November, we did, I think, 6 or 8 farm tours to other farms in the region. Part of the purpose with this was to expose the participants to other types of farms, not just small scale intensive market gardens, but, you know, we went to Josh's farm who raises grain. The other picture there is a small herb farm, Red Wing Herb Farm on Howe Island. We visited a couple of livestock farms, things like that. That was obviously really well received by the participants, and they loved being able to be exposed to those. And some of those participants are actually now getting jobs on some of those farms that we were able to visit last year. We are right next door to a really well-established community garden called Lakeside Community Garden. So that allowed for some really interesting partnerships because they have some really cool permaculture projects there and a seed saving garden for the Kingston Area Seed System Initiative. So we were able to partner with them to have those folks deliver guest workshops to our participants and allowed our participants to see projects, you know, again, that were just more diverse and interesting. We also brought in local farmers to do specific workshops on crop planning, orchard maintenance, livestock care, things like that. And then another really cool piece of the program was that St. Lawrence College actually was a partner on the project and provided some basic level trade skills training to our participants. So we did like really introductory sessions on carpentry, electrical, plumbing, small engine maintenance and repair, and orchard management. You know, because I think everybody here knows as a farmer, you really need to be a jack of all trades and be able to do a little bit of everything. So these are skills that are going to help to increase these participants' employability on local farms. There's some pictures there of us all building a shed together with the St. Lawrence carpentry instructors. And the other one is, I think, repairing extension cords. So again, all the trade skills training were like custom designed to be relevant to farming. So in the electrical section, we talked about like electric fencing and things like that, how you would actually apply these skills on a farm. And then finally, we were also able to start incorporating the GROW project, our school program, into the farm. So in the fall, we had a number of field trips run by our other Loving Spoonful staff who brought a bunch of kids to the farm to harvest things and, you know, check out what was growing on the farm. And that was like really, really awesome. I have never seen children so excited about anything in my entire life as they were about harvesting those carrots. It was wild. So we're really looking forward to continuing that. So now we're at the stage of, you know, the participants have gone through this 6-month program. We're done the program now as of January. And so for the past couple of months, we've been working on matching all of the participants who actually want jobs with job placements on local farms. So I think so far we've matched about 7 participants who are now going to be working on a farm this summer. Some of them are actually looking at starting their own farm. Some of them have access to land through their families, stuff like that. So there's a number of avenues that people are going to be getting more engaged with the agricultural industry. And then moving forward, so that original grant that we got was just a 1-year pilot project funding. It ends this March 31st in a couple days. So we've secured another 1-year grant from the same funder for the next year to continue the project and kind of continue to refine the curriculum and some of the training materials and stuff like that. But we're really looking at a long-term vision in partnership with the City of Kingston for a larger agricultural training hub that would offer a variety of training programs for, you know, aspiring farmers, but maybe also for like home gardeners and people who want to do urban agriculture. And like, there's a whole suite of things that we could be providing there. The other long-term vision with the city is to eventually grow this into an incubator farm to access more land, potentially at the prison farm. There's like 2,000 acres there. It's like a huge land resource, so that we can begin to offer people who are ready to start their own farm business access to land and access to shared resources and equipment, things like that. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. I think I'm probably over time, so sorry about that. And then I'll answer questions when we get to the end. Thanks.
That was great. Thank you, Ayla. So inspiring. Go ahead, Ekow, when you're ready.
Great. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. View slideshow. All right. Everybody can see the screen here?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Ekow Stone. I'm the Youth Engagement Coordinator for School Grown. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be presenting to you all today. Is about the program we run. So School Grown is a program run out of the Community Food Growing Department at Food Share Toronto. Food Share Toronto is a food justice organization, non-for-profit organization in the city of Toronto. Basically, what that means is that we focus on challenging and dismantling various systems of oppression that bar people from accessing affordable, culturally appropriate, and healthy food. So those being, racism, patriarchy, capitalism, like all of these sort of systems that make it very difficult for different groups to access the food that they need as kind of a human right. And so Food Share has a lot of different branches. There's the advocacy, there's education, but we're kind of focused on community food growing projects based in parks, schools, and School Grown is obviously, focused on taking underutilized school space. So the TDSB is normally who we partner with. That's the district school board here in Toronto. There's rooftops, schoolyards, and BCI Farm, which is what I'm going to be talking to about mostly during this presentation, is in Etobicoke, so on the west end of Toronto. It's about 2 to 3 acres behind one of the schools there. And so we primarily focus on School Grown on social enterprise, to operating the farms as sort of like community hubs where we can have locals come around and engage in the space in different ways, in different capacities, as well as kind of youth education, employment, and empowerment. And here we have informed by anti-oppression frameworks. So we work with youth of very different, diverse backgrounds, food justice, as I've already kind of mentioned, and also agroecology. So basically we follow kind of all the standard organic growing principles, and we try to work with the natural ecosystem rather than trying to fight with her, Mother Nature, to get to grow what we want. All right, so I'll talk a little bit more about BCI Farm in detail here. So it's a 2.5 to 3 acre farm site. It was established in 2019. It's tucked behind Bernard Thorpe Collegiate Institute, which is an adult learning school in Etobicoke, Ontario. And so it's tucked behind that school and the 427. So it's quite urban. It's right next to a very loud highway. And so there we have an orchard where there's pears and apples and mulberry trees and different shrubs. Market garden where we grow a mixed vegetable. So, your kind of standard eggplants, tomatoes, beets, cabbage, kale, et cetera, as well as other, so-called kind of culturally relevant crops. So crops you might not conventionally see at a farmer's market or in a lot of grocery stores. Bitter melon and long beans and okra and callaloo and scotch bonnet and stuff like that. We have a mid-scale community compost site where we process a lot of food scraps from the local community at one of our farmers markets that I'll speak about a little bit more in detail further into presentation. Wildflower prairie zones where we planted out, hundreds if not thousands of different wildflowers that are native to kind of the prairie ecosystems that you find in Southern Ontario. As well as a shelter belt. We planted so many different native trees and shrubs around the farm to kind of deal with some of the noise, hopefully in 10, 20, 30 years, as well as just kind of bring back more diversity into the habitat. And at BCI Farm, we have various youth employment programs directly through Food Share with different employment service agencies through the TDSB. It's kind of a patchwork. But in any given year, we'll have 5 to 15 employed youth that are on full-time to part-time contracts, as well as different co-ops and placement programs. I'll talk a little bit more about that too later. Workshops, field trips, we take youth out to different farms, around the city, as well as rurally, and a lot more that, again, I'll speak a little bit more as we go. Just a little bit more pictures to illustrate what I'm talking about. The top left there, you have the farm before it was a farm, just an open field. And then you have the BCS tractor there, starting to make the beds. We kind of follow that standard 30-inch bed market garden system. Kevin there at one of the first farmers markets that's just behind the school. And then, yeah, that same year in 2019, yes, alum there harvesting some bush beans. 2020, a big tomato harvest for one of the food boxes at Food Share. Another person, Tara, planting in our shelter belt, and some garlic planting as well in the fall of 2021, I believe. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about everything that we're doing at the farm. So the farm as a school. So let me just check on my notes here. Yeah, so BCI, Burnethorpe Collegiate Institute, is an adult learning school. So the youth that are coming to the program sometimes come from the school, sometimes come from the wider community, but then the age range is generally like at the youngest 19, all the way through to mid to late 20s. And, you know, it's folks that, you know, couple credits they want to finish up for post-secondary or trying to finish up some things. We do also have more mature students there, obviously, but often those folks, you know, got families, got jobs, they're busy. And so generally when we have programming from the school directly, it's more of a kind of younger youth catchment age. There's teachers that use the farm space as a classroom. So there's a green industries course, horticulture course, food and nutrition, and they'll come out to the farm and, you know, do some hands-on learning and use the space as they please in various ways. We'll also collaborate on some classes as well, depending on capacity and, you know, really what the vibe is. Obviously, 2019 is when it was launched, and then COVID happened in 2020. So there's a lot of disruption. But we've still been able to maintain connections with the school. And I think in 2023, we're kind of coming back out of that slump, and hopefully we'll have some more classrooms coming out into the space. There's a co-op placement program that the school runs. And so some of the students that are interested in farming might do their placement with us. It's very convenient, close by. And then that also can turn into like a separate job opportunity that we can offer them, either through us directly or through a TDSB Focus on Youth program. There's various ways that can happen. Local community, local food. It's an open space, and we are located in a neighborhood, of course. And so over the years, you know, people walk by, they're interested, and they'll come with their own input, support, knowledge. And it's an interesting space because there's a lot of like intergenerational knowledge sharing that's happening. We have a lot of aunties, you know, Guyanese aunties and Trini aunties and Bangladeshi aunties that come through the space and will share seeds with us, will share what crops they're interested in seeing growing at the space. And so they really inform our crop plan, how we produce food. And yeah, they're very generous with what they know and their input. As I mentioned a little bit too, yeah, we do a lot of tours with local volunteer groups, organizations like the Toronto Farmers Network, or different community groups that are interested in kind of, you know, accessing that space in terms of seeing what a farm can look like, but still be within the city. So it's very accessible. Some more pictures to illustrate what I'm talking about here. So in the top left, you know, using a bow drill to make fire from fiction. And one of the workshops that one of the guest facilitators came into the space. There's me doing a tour with the Toronto Farmers Network. And then we later did an irrigation workshop that was led by Fina Dirks, the other coordinator of the farm program. Top right, we have the Arab Community Center. I was doing a program with St. Lutherans or St. Philip's Church, where they visited this site a couple times to do some tours and some harvests of certain crops that they wanted to cook with. Bottom pictures, doing some seed cleaning. We went out to Palmerston, Ontario, to visit a seed farm, a hawthorn seed farm that was run by the EFAO. So we took some of the youth up there and cleaned some of the seeds that we saved from the farm. Bottom left is a cute little praying mantis. We have a lot of beneficial insects, and Fina's sort of an entomologist. And so there's a lot of education on ecology and environmental science and stuff like that. And bottom right, we're canning some beans and some okra at one of our workshops that was run by a guest facilitator from FoodShare, Jade. So the farm is a social enterprise. So the farm took a lot of labor and investment from FoodShare. TDSB, provided the land, the water, limited facilities, but generally speaking, all the funding, all the infrastructure, all the labor came from FoodShare. So, there's a different patchwork of funders and grants, as well as revenue that we generate through growing fruits and vegetables at the farm. We'll sell some of those vegetables at a local farmers market that we run. In 2019, it was at the school. COVID happened, so we had to pause for a bit, and then we started running one at one of the Capri Towers just up the street. It's a TCHC building, so we worked with some tenant organizers there. That's a picture of me at the farmers market just last year. It was a big success. We're going to do it again this year, and those fruits and veggies are generally at a lower price. So there's some radish and chard there that we grew, but then we also work with FoodShare to bring like plantain and other oranges, things that we can't grow here at a pretty affordable price. And then what we'll do is maybe sell it to FoodShare or to other buyers at a closer market price to make up that difference. And all the money we generate there just goes towards subsidizing youth wages. Because FoodShare tries to be, or is, a living wage employer. So we pay $24 an hour. So most funders will pay 18, maybe 14, and then we find ways to top that up. The community compost exchange will take kitchen scraps from the local community market that they'll bring down to us, and then we'll cycle that into our mid-scale community compost site and make really rich compost on site that can then nourish our plants. And it kind of works in that circular economy. So we'll give them market dollars that they can actually use as credit against what they purchase. So not only is it affordable, you can even lower the price more if you just bring us, some rotten lettuce and some stuff you didn't finish. So some more pictures of that. We have the market this summer. It was quite busy. So this picture was taken when it slows down. That's when we even get a chance to take any pictures. There's Chris there with a lot of zucchini. So you can imagine it's a lot of work, doing all the harvesting at the farm. Bottom left there is actually a workshop we ran recently this summer in collaboration with Sundance Harvest, where we're working to get more BIPOC youth involved, engaged in urban agriculture in the food system. I'll speak a little bit about that in a second. I know we're running low on time here.
Friendly 2 minute, Ekow.
Thank you. And top right, we have a lot of hot peppers and pequeno peppers that we use to make value-added products that we would sell back to FoodShare as well. So nice like hot sauces and stuff. And one of the youth here is flipping a huge hedgerow of, huge hill of compost that we use from crop residues, as well as kitchen scraps from the local market. So we also work to kind of grow new growers at the farm. So, we work with youth during the summertime and they have a great time, but there's constraints on our end in terms of how much employment, how long our contracts can be. And so we've been working now to kind of provide land, support, skills, and resources for them to actually start their own micro farm businesses on site. So we have 1/8 of an acre dedicated to about 5 micro farms that are youth led. And we started a food justice collaborative a number of years ago with other community-based farms like Sundance Harvest and Black Creek Community Farm, where we're all working together trying to get more BIPOC youth involved in urban agriculture and the food system more generally. and kind of work to create more access to that industry, because, you know, obviously we're losing farmers rurally. A lot of farmers are getting older. And so I think working in an urban setting with youth, especially BIPOC youth who, you know, have historically been, you know, not as represented in the food industry and the food system more generally, I think is very beneficial. But yeah, that's just basically it. I don't want to take up too much time because I know there's questions at the end. But if you want to contact me or anything like that, there's my contact information. Yeah, thank you.
So why don't we begin? Very